Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co-host, Adam Stellman. Today, we'll be discussing our reactions to our Week 7 win over the Arizona Cardinals. We are recording this a couple days later than we normally would due to some travel. And then also, when we were set to go live, was right when the tragedy in Maine happened with that mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine. And I have family up in that area, just maybe 30 minutes from where that happened. So I was really intently watching those broadcasts to see what was going on with that manhunt. So we decided to push recording a day in order to give me a chance to keep up on the news. So our hearts go out to the people in Lewiston, Maine, and all of those affected by this tragedy and then gun violence everywhere. So, Adam.
Well said.
Let's talk Seahawks. How about that Week 7 win, 20-10 over the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, look, I mean, going into this game, I think both of us thought, okay, we've got a chance to, now that we've got the defense right, we got the pieces that we want on defense. It looks like they've been clicking the last few weeks, going in and playing a pretty lackluster Arizona Cardinals offense. And we thought, okay, this is also a team that has allowed 20 plus, almost, I think, 30 plus points per game coming into the week with the Seahawks. So, okay, our offense might have a chance to get going as well. So the hope was going to this game that we were going to get to see a pretty complete game from our offense and defense, showing what this team can actually do. And we didn't really get that. I think the defense came to play. There's a few issues that I think we need to work on, especially coming up because we're going to be playing some other mobile quarterbacks, and Josh Dobbs can move. So there's a few issues there I think we need to button up. But for the most part, the defense played really, really well. Other than a fumble on special teams played really well too. It was just the offense. I think the game opened with us looking like we were going to play pretty well. I think we had 2 first downs and then ended up punting, but we came back and scored in the first quarter. We scored in the second quarter. And then things just kind of stopped. So second half still a struggle for this team, and that is not what you want to see when you're going up and playing a team that you know really, really well.
Oh, 100%. So my initial reaction is a W is a W, right? Yep. This is still a tick in the win column, but it doesn't feel like a win. Like, is there a way to win and still feel like you lost a game? Because I came away from this Arizona Cardinals game feeling like, we could have done better.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially considering who we lost in this game, and we'll talk a little bit more about Nwosu when we get to the defense. I think you can. I mean, I feel the same way. I feel like this game, it doesn't feel like we're coming off a win. This feels a little bit more like we're coming off a loss, and I think it's because. I mean, one, obviously, Nwosu getting hurt and likely being out for the rest of the season stings a little bit. But the offense seems to be so up and down and just not able to get on the same page, especially in the second half of games, that I worry what this is going to look like when we start going up against some higher-powered offenses. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I feel like even though this is a win, it doesn't feel like a win.
No, and right now, my view of the Seahawks schedule, if you go back to my preseason wins and loss kind of prediction as I was looking at the schedule, right now we're right on track because I didn't think. I guess we're down 1. Sorry, we did end up losing to Cincinnati, which I thought we might do in my preseason. So my bad. But yeah, so we need to get a game back somewhere in order for us to kind of stick on that. I had us at 12-5 in what I thought this team could do against this schedule. So we're going to have to steal a game. Has to be, 49ers, Dallas, Eagles, one of those type of games. We're going to have to get back at some point.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. All right. So I will give Joey Blunt a shout out. Playing for the Arizona Cardinals, former Seahawks special teams ace. at least for 1 year since he was here last year. He did really well for the Seahawks on special teams. I thought he was a special teams lock to make this roster, and that was not the case. The emergence of the rookie Jarek Reed kind of displaced Joey Blunt, kind of took that same roster spot that he was holding. So Joey Blunt goes out and does what any guy in the NFL trying to make a team does, and he goes out and he tried and made a team, and that team was the Arizona Cardinals. And he was the guy who flew down and forced the Seahawks' first fumble of the season on special teams by DJ Dallas. So shout out to Joey Blunt. I really like to see former Seahawks do well. I just hate to see it against the Seahawks.
Yeah, you'd hope he would do well, not in the division and not against us. But yeah, no, Joey Blunt, obviously he was a force on special teams when he was here. I like that he's continuing to be a force on special teams where he is now. I just wish it was on a different roster.
Exactly. All right, so let's quickly review our 5 keys to success, and we'll throw out whether we think the Seahawks were successful or were not successful in this particular category. So our first key to success going into this game was Etu DK. And yeah, DK Metcalf didn't play. So I think this one's kind of in the NA category. It's not applicable to this situation.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we put this up as a key to success was because the idea was to get DK Metcalf involved in the offense early, take him out of his head so he's not committing those dumb penalties in the game that have set this offense back. But instead, and we can, I know we haven't gotten the music queued up for it, but we can go to Adam's little conspiracy theory corner. I said going to this game, if DK Metcalf sits out, I think it's more to do with his performance on the field than any injury that he's received. And DK sat out. He didn't look happy on the sideline. He said if you go back and look at the post-game press conference, or I think maybe that it was Wednesday's press conference, he said that he loved, he wanted to have a different role and on the sideline cheering. I didn't see a lot of cheering by DK on the sideline there. It looked a little bit more like grumpy DK. So yeah, we'll see. Do I think that he probably had it, was still struggling with that hip injury? Maybe. I mean, he's been dealing with a rib injury all year and has still managed to play every game. So I'm willing to bet that this was a little bit more about DK's attitude adjustment than DK needing the week off. But we'll see.
Yeah, he's a competitor. He wants to be out there. You want to see that fire. I like the fire that DK brings. I don't like it when he gets out of his head and causes those ridiculous personal foul penalties and things that aren't needed and shouldn't really be part of it. I love the competitive fire. It just needs to stop at the whistle. Maybe a little talking, right? A little trash talk, but leave it at that. Let's keep the shoving, pulling.
Yeah, save your energy for when you're needed on offense.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to give this one not applicable.
Works for me.
All right. So number 2 was, don't forget about the ground game. I think the Seahawks did a pretty good job of incorporating the ground game. We saw them go away from running the ball in Cincinnati, and that was the difference in the game. If Absolutely. We would have kept with the formula that worked instead of trying to do something new, we would have won the game in Cincinnati, and we probably would have won it by a couple touchdowns. That's how important establishing the run game is. I think they did it. We had 115 total rush yards in this game. Kenneth Walker had 26 rushes for 106 yards. So for me, that's great.
Yeah, look, it's our first time we've had a 100-yard rusher in this season. This was Kenneth Walker's first 100+ yard game on the season. He came pretty close a couple weeks ago, but didn't quite get over the century mark. So yeah, I mean, we stuck with the ground game, even when we probably should have gone away from it or maybe tried something a little bit different. We'll get into some of the red zone issues in a second, but yeah, I mean, we kept with the ground game. We were running deep into the second half, so we didn't go away from it, which was what we wanted to see. Let's make sure we remember that we can run the ball on early downs, and we did that. So I'm going to give us a passing grade on this one, even though I think we could have done a lot better in the execution of it.
Oh, I agree. And the numbers are kind of skewed. Geno Smith had 6 rushes. Only one of those looked to be a called QB rush play. So that kind of sets the play calling at probably 52, 53% pass uh, for that ratio. And like I've said before, I want 50 to 55% pass. Right. And so it's right in the middle of that. And it worked out. I think execution, like you said, is something that we need to work on going forward. But as for this game, yes, I'm going to give that a passing grade. I'm going to say, yes, we did that key to success, and that contributed to the win. Our third key to success is the danger zone. And that danger zone for the Seahawks this season has been the red zone. The red zone is the thorn in the Seahawks side. It's their Achilles heel, so to speak. And I'm giving them failing marks for their red zone play this game. We went 1 for 3 in the red zone with a turnover, and I wouldn't care. It wouldn't matter to me if they went like 4 of 5 in the red zone. If they still had the ball first and goal on the 1 yard line and they can't punch it in. And that's what happened this game. Is we showed offensive ineptitude when it came to play calling in the red zone. The interception, I'm going to put on Geno Smith.
Yeah.
His initial read wasn't there. He tried to force it to Bobo, I believe, on the sideline. Corner came down. It was an underthrown ball. It should have just been thrown out of bounds or thrown 2 seconds earlier in that route. So that one's on Geno Smith. He took credit, like responsibility for that. So, I mean, that is what it is. But the play calling in the red zone leaves much
a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, we lined up and did the exact same play. All we did was flip the side that Kenneth Walker was starting from. We had left side up the middle, right side up the middle, stuffed both times. Maybe a lead blocker in the backfield, or let's create some little motion along the offensive line before we take the snap. There's a few issues with that level of play calling in the red zone, and the unimagination or the lack of imagination, I think, was one of the big ones. But I don't know if you want to get into this now. We can get into a little bit of the ineptitude that is the offensive play calling for the entire second half, because that became a theme. The second half, we could not seem to get going on offense after coming back out and supposedly making adjustments to this defense that we were already winning against. So we went from scoring 2 touchdowns in the first half to having to settle for 2 field goals in the second half. We also experienced our first 3 and out in the second half. The offense hadn't experienced one in the first 2 quarters of the game. We had a couple. I think we had one where we had 4 or 5 plays, but we did not take a 3 and out until coming out of the tunnel during the second half. And I think the biggest thing is, I don't know what needs to happen with Kenneth Walker, with Shane Waldron, when it comes to play calling, because it seems the plays that he has scripted work really well. You go and look at the first quarter of the game, or the first, I think, 2 drives on offense of the game. There was a lot of pre-snap movements. We had at least one guy crossing the plane in the backfield every snap. And then as soon as, I'm assuming he got through his set play calls, that stopped. I mean, you go back and look. After the first quarter, we had no pre-snap motion for like 3 straight drives. Second half, before it came out, first couple of plays, pre-snap motion. After that, no pre-snap motion. So I don't know if it's because the play calling that's coming into the field is more simple, because we have less time to get the play call. I don't know what it is, but it seems that when we get away from our scripted plays, the offense changes completely, and that's a big bugaboo.
Well, every single team in the NFL has the same amount of time to get the play call in. So it has nothing to do with the amount of time to get the call in. In fact, when the play is called in, the majority of teams, I can't speak for everybody or even the Seahawks on this, but the majority of NFL teams call in 3 separate plays, because you have the play they're calling, you have a check, and then you have like a hot play if situation depends on which way you go. So it has nothing to do with relaying the play. What it has to do with is Shane Waldron doesn't know how to make adjustments in game. So the scripted plays, coaching staff gets together, they work that out. This is what we've been doing in practice. These plays work well off each other. This play will set that play up. Right? It's chess, right? They're playing chess, and they do that with those scripted plays. And then when the game goes on and the offensive coordinator, offensive play caller, whatever your team does, be it the head coach or the offensive coordinator, the offensive play caller then has to look at the situation on the field, take all the information that's coming in, and then call an adequate play for the situation. And that is what Shane Waldron is failing at. He does a great job in the strategic side. Okay, we need to run a couple plays that have this particular route combination on this side of the field because I'm trying to set up that defender to bite on this play that I have later in the game. He does a great job at that. But what he doesn't do is realize that, oh, this team isn't really good against X, Y, and Z. Let's do X, Y, and Z, regardless of wanting to do this special thing later. So he gets wrapped up into what he wants to happen instead of what he needs to happen right now. And that we saw in the Cincinnati game, where he went away from multiple tight ends. They went away from running the ball. At least they did that in this game. So I will give Shane Waldron credit for having multiple tight end sets. I believe Dissly and Fant both had 26 snaps as an inline tight end, and Parkinson had 22. So they were having those tight ends close to the line of scrimmage helping out. Fant, the majority of his snaps were actually run blocking snaps. I think he only had 6 snaps that were out of a pass set. So they were doing things. They were using tight ends well in this game. So I have to give him credit for that. Some of this play calling, though, is really suspect. He might be one of those guys who just is a really good offensive mind, but he's good on a chalkboard. He's not good when the pressure's on, when he has to execute. And I hate to say that because you always want your coaching staff to stand up above the rest. Right now, he is sweeping the floor of NFL offensive coordinators in a play calling aspect.
Yeah, I guess my point was that it looks like when we have to go with just getting calls in as opposed to knowing what the game script is going to allow, when he's having to make those adjustments, it seems like the plays are less intricate and more simple, which I may just be a thing that happens with everybody because I watch the Seahawks more than anyone else. I'm just laser focused on that. But it does seem like when we know the play ahead of time, we've got more movement along, again, like I said, pre-snap motion, it looks like a more complicated play set. And then when we get to where the plays have to be coming in from the sideline during the game, it's single back set, 2 wide. I mean, it just looks very simplistic. So it honestly looks like 2 completely different sets of plays when we know what's going on. We've already got the game scripted for however many plays to start. And then when we're calling it from the sideline, and maybe I'm wrong, but it definitely looks like we go away from what's working. And I don't know if it's because we don't have the time to get, I don't know how the play calls necessarily work. I mean, you can watch some of the ESPN stuff with the Manning brothers. You can hear them talk about how, some plays are 15 words long. Some are 6, whatever it is. So I don't know if there's more words to be said when you want to have that pre-snap motion or not. But it looks like we're not having enough time to do that because we certainly don't seem to have as many people in motion when we get into the meat of the game.
Well, and he might not really be a motion guy when it comes down to it. It all depends on how the offense is structured. He comes from the Sean McVay tree, right? And McVay has a lot of spread elements, but the true spread offense doesn't work in the NFL. Just go look at Urban Meyer's tenure and see how that worked out. And just all the extra stuff aside.
You're picking the worst example possible.
Well, I mean, he was the guy who originated the college spread offense in the modern version of it. I mean, he did it at Utah, and then the Tim Tebow Florida Gators were where the spread really took over, the college ranks, and that was Urban Meyer, and then he took it to Ohio State where he had success. What I'm saying is look at his tenure on the field when he was at Jacksonville. Leave all that off the field stuff out of it. I mean, obviously that contributed to him not remaining the coach of that team, but the spread, the true spread, doesn't work in the NFL. The true air raid doesn't work in the NFL. So where's Cliff Kingsbury, right? He's gone, and he did not have a lot of success. He's an air raid guy. Those types of offenses are great in college. They don't work in the NFL. You have to have elements of the run game. You have to have some of these fundamental football things in your offense. And Shane Waldron, when he needs to call an offense, like in the moment, he slips into that spread mode. That's not what you need to do. If you look at the scripted plays, there's a lot of motion, like you mentioned, which there's motion in spread and air raid. Like, so in fact, on every play there is.
Yeah. Well, it looks like, I know at least I think I understand the philosophy behind pre-snap motion. The idea is, one, to get a read on the defense. That's a pretty easy way to tell, are they running zone or man? If somebody follows somebody across the field, it's obviously man-to-man, or at least looks like man-to-man. Yeah. And also it creates, it makes the defense start to look, the defense follows that guy, whether they're doing it physically or just with their motion. They're trying to keep track of this guy because it looks like, okay, maybe could be a spot where the ball's going. And when, at least for me, and I just went back and rewatched the game before we jumped on tonight, just to kind of get a little bit of a refresher, because it's been a couple of days since the game happened. And it looked like we were having a lot of success. We were able to create that pre-snap motion, gave Geno a little bit better idea about where to put his protections at. Everything looked to be moving really well. In the second half, when we weren't doing looked like we were almost doing no pre-snap motion, they were putting a little bit more pressure on Geno. They were able to get to him faster. It looked like he wasn't able to call out the coverages, or didn't look like he needed or tried to adjust protections. Sorry. Yeah. No. Look, I know we're off on a tangent here, but it looks like, and we've said this before, it looks like Shane Waldron is two different people. And when he's able to get that, when he's going off of his game script, he looks like he's a pretty decent offensive mind. And then we get into the meat of the game, and it looks like he's lost out there. We've harped on this a lot. We obviously have taken 10 minutes to harp on it for this one too. But yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about the defense. This is more fun anyway.
All right. So our fourth key to success was BDE, right? Big defense energy.
Yeah.
And they brought it. The defense looked great. Let's see. As far as pressures go, 15 pressures, 5 sacks, only allowed 122 yards passing. Gave up over 100 on the ground, but when you give up 25 yards to the quarterback in one chunk, that's going to happen. There were some sloppy things on defense. I'm not going to give them 100% A+ for the game. We missed 10 tackles on that play I just referenced, a Dobbs 25-yard touchdown run. Darrell Taylor was in, and to give them credit, Darrell Taylor is a situational pass rusher. That's his role on the team. That is the role he needs to have in the NFL. If they just commit to Darrell Taylor being a 30% of the plays situational pass rusher, he's going to have 8 to 12 sacks every single season. That sounds great to me. Yeah. But he was in because Nwosu got injured. We'll talk more about that later. Darrell Taylor played a lot of this game. And so he was in. He had sort of run contain on that side. It was like run contain and then rush if that opportunity is there. And you see him bite hard and get lost. And then we had Woolen and Diggs, I believe, both not be able to bring Dobbs down over the course of those 25 yards. So there were definitely issues. I still would have had Darrell Taylor in the game for that play. It was 1st and 25. or first and goal on the 25. So that is a pass rush situation. I probably would have had Darrell Taylor in the game as well.
Yeah, look, we're going to talk a little bit more about Nwosu's injury and the pass rush. But yeah, Darrell Taylor was asked to step up in this game. I think he did an admirable job. Obviously, again, run support is not his big thing. He's not really great at holding an edge. So that's something we're going to have to work to scheme around moving forward, knowing that Nwosu is going to be out. If Darrell Taylor is going to be the starting D end or outside linebacker there, we're going to have to make sure we've got safety support or whatever it is to clean up what he can't do to contain the edge, because teams are going to try and take advantage of that, as they did as this game went on. So, yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, yeah, you're right. I think the defense played pretty dang near lights out. There were a few issues. The one big one for me is just containing mobile quarterbacks, something that we are going to see better versions of going on this year. We've got Lamar Jackson with the Ravens coming up, and of course, the name is escaping me, but the Eagles signal caller,
Jalen Hurts.
Thank you. Jalen Hurts is also kind of known for what he can do with his legs. So this is something we're going to have to take a look at the game tape this week and go, okay, how do we fix this? Because if we let someone like Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson escape containment, they're going to kill us. Those two guys can put up yards in chunks. So yeah, I mean, other than that, I think the defense played really well. Obviously, penalties were a little bit of an issue, negating a couple of really good plays by Devin Witherspoon, including another interception. But yeah, for the most part, and a sack. Thank you. But for the most part, yeah, the defense played really, really well.
Yeah, I will shout the defense out for another improvement. This was one of my things they needed to work on in the bye week. They were allowing 52+% offensive third down conversions before the bye. And right now they're at about 33% of defensive third downs allowed. So they've stepped it up. They're bringing that where it needs to be. We need to see that going forward. So shout out Clint Hurt, cleaning up the trash, so to speak, in that aspect. And yeah, I mean, like you said, this defense played great. I'm nitpicking a little bit in certain areas because you can always improve. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have a coaching background. What kind of coach would I be if I didn't think that you can always improve, because you're never actually perfect. So this defense is looking really, really good. Jordan Brooks had an amazing game. In fact, KJ Wright shouted him out in his post-game show that he did as probably his best game as a professional football player. He was all over the field, and he was bringing energy. And that's the thing, is he didn't just play well, but he played well. He hyped up everybody around him because of the intensity and the energy that he brought to the field.
Jordan Brooks is fantastic. I don't think we can overstate how incredible his recovery from an ACL tear to come back and be able to play this entire season has been. I mean, the man, he's got Wolverine blood. Again, I think we all think DeMar Hamlin's probably going to win Comeback Player of the Year, which is fine. I have no issues with that. But it really, it kind of sucks, because I think in any other year, Jordan Brooks would be top of the list right now, because he is playing like an all-pro, and he's coming off at complete ACL tear, and the recovery time was nothing. So it's been a pretty incredible season for Jordan Brooks, and kind of culminating in this game. He had a fantastic game.
Yeah, and you got to think, one of those touchdowns by Arizona was off of the DJ Dallas turnover, I believe, the fumble. I believe they scored their first touchdown off of that
their
fumble.
Only touchdown.
Yeah, you're right, because they only scored 10 points. So short field, right? I predicted the defense to give up 3 points. And if DJ Dallas doesn't fumble on the 25-yard line or whatever it was, there's a chance the defense would have only given up 3 points. So they're looking really good. I like how this defense looks with Jamal Adams healthy and in there. I see the vision that they had for this defense, and I'm excited going forward. Like I said last week, I'm excited about this defense. So as far as it comes to the 5 keys, 100%. I give them a passing grade here. They definitely brought the energy on defense and really kind of put the NFL on notice that defense is here to play.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, this is a defensive team, always has been under Pete Carroll. That's been the identity. Obviously, we went away from that a little bit in the latter years of the Russell Wilson era, but it looks like we're getting back to it, and love to see it.
All right, our fifth key to success was no bench warmers. Right? We wanted the offense to come out and make that statement on offense to go with the statement that the defense made and put up points. We wanted 25, 30, 40 points in this game, and it just didn't happen. And the offense didn't look like they could. Like, they may have been executing, and a lot of people looked really good doing it. JSN and Bobo.
Jake Bobo. Oof, Jake Bobo.
I mean, looked great in this game. Both got touchdowns. First time in Seahawks franchise history that two rookie wide receivers got a touchdown in the same game. So just doing things. And I mean, Jake Bobo with that Tyler Lockett toe tap on the sideline.
That toe touch touchdown was ridiculous. And also shout out to Pete Carroll for winning both of his challenges in this game. Something we're not used to seeing. Pete usually just kind of throws that red flag out, and we usually know, okay, well, there's a wasted timeout. This time he got both right, and one of those was on the Jake Bobo touchdown, which was just a fantastic play. Good throw, even better catch.
Oh, absolutely. And then the JSN touchdown looked like a busted coverage, but I mean, he was there. He finished. He did his job.
Geno put the ball in to find the hole in the zone. So, yeah, look, I mean, it would have been really great. I think there were opportunities for this offense, to put this game away and out of reach. That would have given us opportunities to see some of the guys that we don't usually see in a game kind of come out. One of those guys being Drew Lock, but it just didn't happen. The offense, especially in the second half, just kind of stalled. We ended up with 6 points on however many offensive drives. I think it was 7 offensive drives in the second half, and we, with less than a point per drive, not great. But yeah, I mean, I can't give this a passing grade because we didn't get to see those backups come off the bench, and it's mainly just because of offensive execution. So, I mean, I think that they made the smart move by keeping the starting defense out there, because this game was well within reach for the Cardinals the entire way because the offense just couldn't execute.
Oh, 100%. Right there with you. So you take the first one out because it wasn't really applicable. DK didn't play, so he didn't have a chance to help or hurt the team. So then we have 4. And right now I have them only executing on 2 of those 4. That's 50%. That's not going to win you many games. If they're playing a team other than the sorry Cardinals, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler, that was going to be my takeaway from this game is, do we win this game if we're placing any other team? And I don't know that we do. I think the defense played really, really well. But if you're out there with an offense that executes better than these pitiful Cardinals have been executing, I don't think that 20 points would have been enough to win the game.
I will shout out the offensive line. This offensive line played really well. Geno Smith took a couple hits, but no sacks. Let's see. We had a couple backups. Obviously, that's sort of the theme of
2 rookies.
The Seahawks. Yeah, offensive line, right? Anthony Bradford and Oluwatimi there at center. And Oluwatimi only allowed 1 pressure. And that wasn't even a quarterback hit. It was a hurry. So his guy made Geno Smith step up, right? Made him flush out of the pocket. It wasn't. I mean, that was great. I think he was tied for the highest graded for PFF and pass blocking offensive lineman.
Look, if you just go back and take a look at individuals that we have playing on offense, this team looks like a contender. I mean, we have rookies stepping up and playing lights out. We've got them contributing on offense and defense. It's just been execution on the field. And I think, again, we already talked a ton about this, so I'm not going to rehash again, but I think it comes mostly down to offensive play calling. I think we're just lacking that spark on offense because this defense, I think, is ready to play. And the problem is, if we can't put up more than 20 points on a fairly porous defense that is the Arizona Cardinals, are we going to be able to have enough offensive output against teams that can come to play defense and also have a pretty good offense, which we are going to see later in this year? I mean, again, San Francisco 49ers twice still, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Ravens. I mean, we have a murderer's row for the second half of our season. These are the games. And we have another one coming up next week where the offense needs to get on the same page and figure out the kinks, because we're not going to have the same kind of cake teams we've been playing the first half of the season. Not taking anything away from the Bengals or any of those other, or the Rams in week one, but we have not gotten into the meat of our season yet. And when we do, points are going to be hard to come by. So we need to figure out how to execute when we have opportunities in the red zone, and turn this around, because it needs to get turned around quick, because the second half of the season is coming up fast.
Oh, 100%. Quick thing, I'm going to shout out Stone Forsyth, who primarily has played left tackle for the Seahawks. Slid over to the right side. He ended up starting this game over Jake Curran, who has had some struggles in the last few games. And he only allowed 2 pressures. Obviously no sacks, because nobody allowed a sacks. And he did really well. In fact, Pete Carroll even said there's a good chance you'll see Stone Forsyth on that right side until Lucas comes back from injured reserve.
Which I'm okay with.
Okay, so little bit of controversy came out of this game. DK Metcalf had to sit because of that rib injury. And they say strained ribs. I would be willing to bet those are broken ribs, or at least a hairline fracture or something. There is something going on. And rib injuries, I mean, they're rough. I don't know if you've ever dealt with one, but it hurts to breathe, let alone run around and get hit by grown men.
You have to do anything. Raise your arms to move. Anytime there's, you're moving your upper body, a rib injury does not feel good. I've dealt with broken ribs before. I've dealt with bruised ribs before. Not fun. And again, we talked a little bit about this at the top because of our key to success involving DK, but he's been dealing with the same injury all season. I know there was a hip injury that popped up after the Bengals game that was mentioned, and like I said, I think that may have been why he was held out this game. But I think it could also just be, look, DK, we're going to rest you because, one, we want you to get healthy to going into the second half, and 2, you're hurting the offense more than you're helping it lately. DK's a young guy. I know, Peach comes from a coaching background kind of based in college where that was a little bit more of a thing, teaching these guys to be grownups. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the conversation leading up to that game, because I, again, think that DK sitting out probably had more to do with his attitude than his injuries. But that's just me, which of course has led to conversations about, is DK on the move? And we have the trade deadline coming up next Tuesday. As a matter of fact, it's in 5 days. And the rumor mill is abuzz. I think that this has been a headline on ESPN and several other sites. Are the Seahawks going to attempt to trade DK, knowing, especially because we've gotten these contributions from these rookie wide receivers? Anyway, so that's been a thing.
Hauls in a 20-yard touchdown pass.
I mean, look, we could use a 6'7" long arm Wookiee. I think we've got him in Jake Bobo, though, personally. But the short answer to this is no. DK, I really doubt the Seahawks are shopping DK Metcalf. Do I think that they would treat DK Metcalf if the right price was offered? Yes, because I think that they would trade anybody if the right price was offered. What's the right price with DK Metcalf? Probably at least a first-round pick and some other considerations. Is anybody offering that? I doubt it. Maybe. Someone as desperate like the Panthers maybe could. But they're kind of out of it. I don't know why they would make a trade. They're not, they're kind of out of the playoff stuff. But are there teams out there that could potentially trade for DK Metcalf? Yes. Do I see it happening? No, I do not.
Yeah, I don't see it happening either. And that comes from me, who doesn't really value the wide receiver position all that well. And my philosophy is this: a good wide receiver is going to get about 10 targets a game. Your great ones are going to get more than that. Okay, so those are targets. A good / great wide receiver will also influence additional plays. Either I'm not going to put Jake Bobo in that great or good category yet. I mean, he's still working,
I'm jumping on it right now. Jake Bobo, future Hall of Famer.
He influences every run play he's out there. He is the 3rd highest run blocking player in the NFL right now, according to
regardless
PFF.
of position. Yeah.
So, I mean, he definitely affects there. But you got to look at wide receivers, right? A really good one, DK Metcalf might draw some attention from a safety as he's trying to run off coverage. So Tyler Lockett get an underneath pass, get a conversion on third down. They're going to influence plays that way. Okay, so a good wide receiver will influence or affect 50% of your plays on offense. A great wide receiver will affect 70%. Okay. My offensive linemen affect 100% of plays. My quarterback affects 100% of plays. And your running backs actually affect more plays than wide receivers. So if somebody were to offer,
either in blocking or running the ball.
Yeah. And honestly, they should be taught to block, because the way that football at all levels, I'm talking peewee, high school, college, all the way up, running backs first need to know how to also catch the ball as a wide receiver, so to speak, out of the backfield, but also be able to block and help out the big guys, because there's a focus going away from the running game just as a trend across football.
Yeah.
So I say, if somebody did offer a decent offer, I would listen to it, but I don't value wide receivers as high as everybody else does. Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely not. It's more likely that they try to move D. Eskridge, which I think is the real player that got exposed, even though he wasn't even on the field, because he just got brought. They have a roster exemption for him right now because he got taken off of the suspension list. But when the young guys step up and the young guys play the way that Bobo and Smith-Njigba did in this last game, we don't really need D. Eskridge in that wide receiver core, especially with Derek Young also on track to come off injured reserve here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, give me the taller guy with better hands.
With better hands, yeah. So we'll see what happens. I think there could be a move. The Seahawks.
I think it's more likely that we bring in players than get rid of them. Not obviously there'd have to be a corresponding roster move, but yeah, I think the Seahawks, at least if I'm the front office, I'm thinking that we have a shot to make a deep run this year. So I would project them to be buyers rather than sellers at the deadline.
Which is exactly where I was going.
Oh, sorry.
Which was, the Seahawks have actually made a move, which people thought could have been a trade deadline acquisition target, not the player, but the position.
Right.
And that is because Uchenna Nwosu went down with, they initially called it a pec strain, and I believe now it's a torn pec, and he's going to need surgery. And the surgery on that is pretty much a season ender. It's a long recovery time. You definitely can't play the position that he plays and not be able to move that pec or have limited mobility in that pectoral muscle. So it looks like Nwosu is out for this season. And there was all the speculation. What are the Seahawks going to do? Is there going to be a trade target? I know Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks put out a great trade scenario, which involved moving D. Eskridge to the Jets for Carl Lawson, I believe, but which I was all for. But then the Seahawks went out and they decided that they needed to go reunite with a player from the past. And so since we're doing this on Thursday this week, we know that the Seahawks went out and signed Frank Clark to come in and kind of fill that roster spot, that void that's being left by Nwosu.
Yeah, I'm actually mad now that we didn't record on Tuesday, because I text as soon as it became clear that Nwosu was going to be out for the season. I said, "Welcome home, Frank Clark." We knew that the Broncos weren't unable to trade him, and ended up releasing him last week. And I think that there was a little bit of buzz around it. There was more talk about him possibly reuniting with Kansas City than the Seahawks. But I'm glad that we got him. I think it helped that we have his best friend in Reed, Jaron Reed up here. Those two guys have been close since coming in together as rookies. And certainly I think he can come in right away and step into a rotational pass rush role. I'd like to see him get some more early down work than Darrell Taylor, because again, Darrell Taylor's still kind of suspect when it comes to running plays and holding that edge. Frank Clark, definitely more of a pass rusher than an edge holder, but he has been pretty stout against the run, especially in the playoffs. Go back and look at his tape with Kansas City. That's kind of where he kind of steps up. But he's a decent run defender. I think Boye Mafe still probably better at this point in his career. But yeah, I think this is a perfect piece to bring in. We know we can generate sacks with guys like Darrell Taylor. We've also got a young guy that we drafted fairly highly, waiting on the bench to kind of come off and help out in that aspect. But really getting another guy that can help set that edge was important. And I think we may have done that here by bringing in Frank Clark.
Yeah, and I think Frank Clark also has the versatility to maybe kick inside on pass rush downs as well. So add a little bit of flexibility. I'm excited to see what he can bring. I was hoping that they would bring Tariq Smith back to the active roster to see a little bit of what he can bring to the table. He was only active for one game before he went to the practice squad, so we're not really sure what we have in that player. But I'm excited that Frank Clark is back. It really hurts the defense that Nwosu's out.
Yeah, I don't think there's a replacement.
No, in fact, Derek Hall needs to play more. They need to put that second round pick, the second round pick that they had a first round grade on, by the way. He needs to get more time. I don't want to see 70, 80% of defensive snaps by Darrell Taylor. That's just not his game. Let's let him do what he does best. Let's get somebody in there who can set an edge, defend the run, and do the things that the outside linebackers in the scheme are asked to do. I think we have some players that can step up and do that. I would love to see Derek Hall get an expanded role. Frank Clark, let's work him into this system and see what happens in that defensive front seven now that Nwosu is out. Adam, what are your final thoughts on this game?
I mean, I don't know what more I could say other than it sucks coming off a win that feels like a loss for multiple reasons. I think the biggest one being losing Nwosu for the season, but also just because, like I said, going into this game, I felt like this had the opportunity to be a get-right game for the Seahawks offense, and it didn't take advantage of that. So I think we have another opportunity coming up next week, going to Cleveland. Hashtag throwback uniforms. Can't wait to see those. But the Cleveland defense is nothing to sneeze at. So I don't know if this offense is going to be able to get their feet underneath him. I think it's a missed opportunity. We had a week this week where we really could have taken advantage of the fact that we're going against a less than stellar defense to get this offense ready to go on its same page going into the second half, and we didn't do that. And now we do not face we don't have another opportunity like that going forward. We will not see another defense like the Arizona Cardinals until we see the Arizona Cardinals again, and that's down the road. And so, yeah, it just feels like a missed opportunity this week. That's my final thought.
Yeah, and don't forget, when we see those Arizona Cardinals again, they're going to be healthier, and they may be led by Kyler Murray again. So it will be a different team than we saw in this past week. My final thought is going to be a lesson, and that lesson is going to be short and sweet. And this is a lesson for Shane Waldron. When the ball's on the 1 yard line, you want your running back with momentum going forward when they receive the ball, because that helps them carry that momentum into the pile, hitting the hole, using a little bit of wiggle, right? What you don't want to do is hike the ball from the 1 yard line to your quarterback, who is standing 5-6 yard line, and then have them turn to their side and hand it to their running back, who now, a second and a half after the ball was snapped, is getting the ball 5-6 yards from the goal line. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It won't work in the NFL. Stop it. Stop being cute. It doesn't work. Especially doesn't work multiple times in a row. Listen, you try it once. Didn't work. Scratch it off the sheet. Line up and pound the ball in like football players do. Play some football. Quit being cute. I'm excited for this team. I actually really want to see the matchup with the Browns.
Oh yeah.
This defense is going to be stout. It will definitely test our offense. More about that in our Week 8 preview, which will be coming up here actually shortly because this episode is the late getting out. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching if you're on YouTube. And as always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.